Have you ever really stopped to think about the ultimate beginning? I don't just mean of us or the planet, but of everything. We all know that every effect has a cause, right? But what in the world caused the first cause? Today, we're going to dive deep into a really stunning book called The Entropy of Causality that tackles that exact question. So let's get into it.
So, the book kicks off with this really simple but powerful idea, this chain of cause and effect. Think about it. A student learns to write poetry from their teacher, okay? But that teacher learned from their teacher. And the very language they're using, it came from generations and generations before them. The point is, nothing you see really owns its own existence. It's all borrowed from whatever came before it.
And right away, that leads to this huge, kind of mind-bending puzzle. If everything is just one link in a chain, leaning on the link that came before it, what's holding the whole thing up? I mean, if that chain of causes just goes back forever and ever with no actual beginning, how is it even possible for anything to be here right now?
All right, so let's start by really wrestling with that idea. This dizzying, almost paradoxical concept of a past that never, ever started.
You know, this problem actually has a name. It's called infinite regress. And here's an easy way to think about it. Imagine a chain just hanging in midair, hanging from nothing. It would just fall, right? Of course it would. Or what about two mirrors facing each other? If you don't put something between them to actually reflect, they're just reflecting emptiness into infinity. An endless chain of borrowed existence with no origin means that logically, nothing should exist at all.
So, if an infinite chain is a logical dead end, then there has to be another answer. Something has to be holding it all together. And that brings us to the book's core solution.
The book gives this solution a name, the independent anchor. This is link zero. It's the one and only thing in the entire universe that doesn't need a cause. It doesn't just happen to exist. Its existence is a fundamental necessity built into its very nature. It's not holding on to anything else. It is the thing that everything else is holding on to. Okay, and this is maybe the most crucial distinction the book makes, so it's really important to get this. The anchor isn't a who, it's a what. It's not some conscious being with a plan or a personality. It's a fundamental structural necessity of reality, almost like a law of physics or a mathematical truth. It doesn't choose to create the universe. The universe is just the natural, automatic reaction to its existence.
And this quote from the book just illustrates the whole idea perfectly. Think about it. Any building needs a foundation that isn't just sitting on top of another building, right? It needs to be the absolute base. Well, reality is the same way. It needs a final, unmoving support. The anchor is that ultimate ceiling, providing the structural stability for this whole, giant, glittering chandelier of our reality to hang from.
Okay, wait a minute. So if this incredibly powerful, fundamental source of all reality exists, why does the universe feel so silent, so empty? Why don't we feel its presence all the time? Well, the book has a really fascinating answer for that too. The answer basically comes down to one word: entropy. You've probably heard of it. It's just the natural tendency for order to break down into disorder over time. So the anchor is a state of perfect, 100% concentrated order, zero entropy. But as its existence kind of radiates outward, creating these reflections like the laws of physics, and then matter and energy, that original purity gets weaker. With each step down the chain, more and more of that original signal is lost. And us, we're way down at the very end of that long chain.
Man, this is such a powerful way to explain it. The anchor is like a radio station broadcasting a perfectly clear signal. But by the time that signal gets to us, it's bounced through so many layers of decay and interference that all we can really hear is the static. We are literally living in the noise, which makes it almost impossible to hear the original song that was being played.
So, if the universe is really this silent, neutral machine, and we're just surrounded by cosmic static, how did we as humans respond to all that silence? And this leads us to a really fascinating look at our own psychology. How do we get from this non-conscious, structural what to a personal, listening who? According to the book, this wasn't a discovery, it was an invention, and it was born out of some of our deepest human needs.
I mean, think about it from our perspective. For a species that is wired to see purpose and intention in everything, a silent machine-like universe is pretty terrifying. So, we filled that void. We essentially created a mask for the anchor, turning it into a conscious being who cares about us, who sets down rules, and who gives us this feeling of cosmic importance. It's a brilliant tool for social order and for profound psychological comfort. So, in a nutshell, the book presents the idea of God as a kind of human-made interface for an indifferent reality. We personify the anchor not because it's a person, but because we are people. We're just projecting what we need to see onto the silent structural foundation of everything.
And this brings us to the end of the journey. If the whole universe started as a kind of reaction, how does that reaction finally stop? What's the ultimate fate of this incredible, sprawling chain of cause and effect?
The book calls the end state universal homogeneity, but you might know it better as heat death. It is the absolute final state of maximum entropy. It's like, you know how a poet's body eventually returns to the soil and its complex structure just dissolves? Well, imagine that for the entire universe. All energy gets spread out so perfectly evenly that nothing new can happen. All structure, from stars to people, just dissolves into a kind of uniform cosmic dust.
When you put it all together, you get this view of the whole cosmic story as one single incredible arc. It kicks off with a burst of pure order, sparked by the anchor's existence. We are living right in the middle, this temporary, beautiful time where that order is being spent to create all this amazing complexity, like stars and life. But eventually, the reaction just runs out of gas, and everything settles back down into a final, cold, silent state of complete disorder.
And this leaves us with a really profound final thought. From this point of view, we aren't the grand purpose of the universe. We're more like a fleeting vibration in a signal that's slowly fading away. But knowing we're just a temporary echo doesn't have to make our lives meaningless. In fact, it might suggest that the real meaning, the real beauty, is found right here and now, in the brief, amazing stories we get to tell each other on this short journey from the infinite all the way back to the soil. It's a pretty huge idea to wrestle with, but a powerful one.